Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Limitation is a Mirage podcast. On this episode, I have a superhuman guest in Erik Everhard. Erik is a porn star or retired porn star. I'm not sure if you're retired just yet, but I will find out. He also helps people to master the bedroom. I think the saying that I read somewhere that I liked was master the bedroom like you master the boardroom. I thought that was awesome. I can't remember where I've seen it, but I've read your book, Unleash Your Sexual Superpowers, a porn star's guide to sexual mastery. So I'm pretty sure I'm awesome in the bedroom as well now at this stage. So please welcome my guest. And Erik, could you give a little brief intro in case what I rambled isn't clear enough for people?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Well, brief about myself. I'm an author, men's coach, and a professional porn star. And now I work with men by teaching them elite level sexual skills so that they can master the bedroom like they dominate the boardroom.
Oh, that was
And
close.
yeah, close. And yeah, for me, basically, after having gone through this crazy journey, and crazy, I almost call it human experiment that has been the porno business, I learned a lot, and I learned a lot about humanity, psychology, and sexuality. And you're put into this science experiment that most normal people would never experience or would necessarily need to experience, right? But you're thrown into this crazy world where now you've got so much opportunity to experiment and to really figure out, what actually functionally works with women, what functionally works for you, and we're talking about removing the theoretical elements that you get in Cosmopolitan, or you get in this book, you get in this. I didn't read any of that. I was boots on the ground, 10,000 hours on my back or more, putting in the work to figure this stuff out. And so after that journey, that's now what I'm giving back to men so that they can have that in their lives and have it from not some pseudo theoretical place, but real, honest, functional, boots on the ground, practical tips, advice, tactics.
I love the idea of, like you just mentioned, Cosmopolitan and stuff. And there's always those 10 ways to make your love life better, 10 ways to whatever. And you're like, this is somebody just typing up stuff. Whereas you've actually done this. Like, is it like over 4,000 or over 5,000 women you've, like, in your
Yeah,
career,
5,000
probably?
plus or minus 500
Yeah. So
ballpark.
whenever you talk about it, um, this is the schoolboy in me, but you have proof of it too. So, no way everyone will be like, oh, I've been with like 30 women in class. Yours is on camera. So yeah.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think if you go on IAFD, it's like, I think they list me, and these are rough listings, but they do have it all mapped out. I think it's like, I don't know if it's 2,500 or 2,600 scenes that they have calculated. Then you have, well, that's not always one person in the scene. For example, I did a movie, this was in 2000, which was called The World's Luckiest Jock, and it was me and 101 women.
Yeah.
So, when we start looking and we start putting the numbers together, that's where we get to that approximate figure based on how many scenes that I did each year. Because my first year I did 200 scenes. That was probably the least amount that I ever did in my first year. So, you can start to do the math.
Yeah. The 101 in one go would definitely reinforce that when you teach people how to last longer, like, well,
Mhm.
like 101 is like that's more than most will. I was gonna say that's more than most will get in their life. And then my brain recalculated and was like, that's like way more. People wouldn't even fathom that number
Yeah.
in general life. I suppose that the most basic question you probably get asked this a million times is how did you end up in porn? Like how did you get there?
Yeah. Well, for me, it was a combination of things. So first, I was previously going to massage therapy school. So I was training to be a licensed massage therapist. And on lunch break, go in the lunchroom, I'm eating my lunch, and they had these newspapers that had what's going on in the city, local band listings, all of these types of things. And so I picked up a newspaper and I was just thumbing through it and turning the page. And then all of a sudden I see this ad, and it's about 4 inches by 4 inches. And in this ad, they're looking for women and couples to do a porno movie. And I'm like, I'm living in Canada at the time, in Vancouver. And it's like, this is like, you've never heard of this before. Like, it's like
Yeah.
shock and awe. I'm like, oh my God. And previously I used to date this girl, and she used to joke with me, because sometimes we would watch porno movies together. And she would say, well, you're well hung. You could do porno. And I'm like, yeah, thanks, sweetheart. Sure, whatever.
It's
Right.
ego stroking,
Because
you thought?
ego stroking, right? So I didn't give it too much thought. But then when I saw the ad, in the back of my mind, I was like, wait a second. She always said you'd be good at that. And so it really got my attention. And I called them up. Of course, they abruptly hung up on me, which I understood as I became a veteran in the space. Back then, this predates Viagra. See it, like, there is, it's you and your penis and your mind. And that was it. And 99.9% of guys that would show up failed. So the companies don't want to take a risk on you. That's why when you look at any old porn footage, you'd always see the same 10 guys, because they were the same 10 guys that could do it.
Yeah.
That's the reality. Minus the other characteristics that would make an actor famous. Right? I always looked at it. There was 5 things that I discovered. If you want to be world famous, you had to be able to get an erection on command within ideally 2 minutes of being told to. You need to be able to ejaculate, produce an orgasm, again, when told to, not before, and ideally within about a minute and a half of being told. You don't need to be hung like a horse, but you can't be Tiny Tim. You need to be above average, right? Just because you're creating a visual medium. You need to be decently good looking, not Brad Pitt, but if you're like Skeletor, it's not going to be attractive. And the A-list girls are not going to want to work with you. And then the last most important one was, you need to be able to bring something to the scene with the woman and bring something out of her that would not have existed if you specifically weren't in the scene. And that was very particular to the American marketplace. That's what the Americans liked. They wanted the chemistry. And if you could go and if you could make that girl forget that there was 20 people standing around, that there was a lighting crew, that there was the director, the makeup artist, the catering, if she could forget all of that for like an hour and just be with you and have a good time, then you did your job. And if you had all those 5 criteria, you could be a superstar.
The fifth one is the most intriguing, and I would imagine the one that would work in real life as well, more than anything. The fact that you're creating that connection, that they forget, like, you don't want to be sleeping with someone that's thinking, fuck, when this is over, I need to go and do the washing. All right. And like, are you finishing up yet? So is there any way that you were creating that connection? Were you doing it, I suppose, were you doing it consciously, or was it just who you are as a person?
I think a lot of it is conscious, because what I noticed, and this is one of the things that I take into my teaching with men, you do need to understand that the benefit of being thrown into that situation. Imagine this. I show up, I meet Susie or Jill or Jackie, whoever it is that day. They're sitting in the makeup chair. I shake her hand. Hi, my name's Erik. 20 minutes later, we're having sex. So there's no discussion about, hey, no real discussion about, what is the exact thing I need to do to get you off? Like, none of that is happening, right? So you're being thrown in this situation, and you're learning, first of all, that, well, people talk about this all the time, that body language is 93% of communication, and what you say is 7%, and it might be 99 when you're talking sexual, right? Their
Yeah.
body will tell you everything that's working and everything that's not working. The problem is, most guys don't know how to decode what the body is saying. So they don't know the signs to look for. They don't understand the cues that are given off by a woman's body. So they're not able to effectively work with the woman in the bedroom to get her off. And so you learn really quickly, you get thrown all these different bodies, and you start to metaphorically see the matrix in the sense of you see the overarching principles by which all women's bodies operate.
Mm-hmm.
And once you kind of see that, now it's like, okay, well, the principles never change. It's just the application of the principles that do.
Yeah, I
And
love
so
that.
then you start seeing that, and then it becomes quite easy, or very relatively easy to get women off. So you start in the moment, you're figuring out them in real time, and that doesn't require any talking. That's just feeling. That's
Mm-hmm.
feeling and sensation, and that's being tuned into what you're feeling and know, first of all, what it is you're supposed to be feeling for, and then being able to feel it.
I have two questions based on that. I love that idea of the overarching. So that reminded me, 'cause you were saying that you were in massage school, and I was a kinesiologist for 14 years, and that's how I would have seen bodies. I would look at people and go, like you're saying, like the Matrix. I used to probably come across almost robotic at the start because I would look at the body and scan it and be like, right, this is how everything works, but this is a wee bit off and this is off. So if I do this, and then as you're working with the body, you feel it adjust and move and what you need to do. So do you think having a massage, because I would always say to couples, I think that every couple should learn proper massage so that one, they can massage each other, but two, they become more connected and more aware of how the body's reactive and how it works. So do you think massage helped you in that when you had the understanding of how the body worked?
I don't think massage helped me. What massage did, that experience, was open my mind to the level of sensitivity you could have with things,
Hmm.
because we had a number of elite level practitioners that were the teachers, and literally they had developed such sensitivity in their hands that they could put their hands on somebody and they could feel the inflammation. They could feel where something was out of place. They could feel all the ligaments, the muscles. They could feel all the different bony landmarks. They could feel all this stuff with their fingers. It was like they were penetrating layers and layers deep, almost like an X-ray machine, but with their hands. And
Hmm.
you put your hands on somebody and you're like, I don't know what I'm feeling for here. It's skin, right? And they're like, no, don't you feel this? Blah, blah. So it was just a level of sensitivity. And that's what I took away from that, because when I talk about, especially getting women off, and when I go into the oral techniques that I use, a huge part of it is utilizing what I call your tongue compass to get that same level of sensitivity, because that is, if the massage therapist is putting their hands on somebody and being able to feel all those layers deep with their hands, well, you need to be feeling the clit and what it's telling you with your tongue. But the sensitivity level becomes the same thing, because some guys get down there and like, I don't feel anything. I'm like, no, trust me. Let's go deeper, right? Like let's
Yeah.
hone in on the sensations, because that little fleshy nub is going to tell you absolutely everything that's going on. If you can just start to decode what it's telling you.
Do you think so? Then my second question was about like your being present, and it fits with what you're saying about going down there. Do you think guys are less present because they're trying not to come the whole time? They're like so inwardly focused.
Well, I think they're inwardly focused totally for a number of different reasons. And this is where I've noticed the 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 two evils sort of coalesce into each other a lot too. You get guys where they have the performance anxiety,
Hmm.
where they're stressing about, are they going to get hard? And then you have guys that are suffering from the premature ejaculation anxiety, where they're sitting there and they're stressing about, oh, am I going to last long enough? So usually you have a combination of both. At first they're like, oh God, I hope I get hard. I hope I this. Oh, I hope I don't come. Like, I hope. I
Yeah.
have said many times, the two worst thoughts you could ever have are, I hope. Because even if we look at that structure, you're presupposing in that language that things are going to go south,
Yeah.
right? So you're already seeding, like, before anything has happened, you're seeding doubt. And the problem with that, let's take, for example, the idea of, if you're saying, well, I hope I get hard. If you don't get hard, like in the first 5 seconds, then after you've said that, you've just confirmed your belief. And now you're
Yeah.
like, oh my God, here we go again. It's happening again. And the tsunami of the thoughts and the adrenaline and everything, it's just, you get that domino effect just rolling.
Mhm.
Now that's tough to get out of because you just keep confirming your own beliefs. So that's really difficult. So I think, to go back to your question, yeah, you guys are totally in their thoughts all the time. And that's one of the biggest problems because, well, for you to be able to feel these things, you need to be absolutely present, and you need to create what I call in your mind white noise.
Mhm.
That was my great analogy, because I had this photographer years ago. He watched me perform, and he came up to me when the scene was all done, and he looks at me, he's like, "That was incredible. So what were you thinking when you were having sex with that girl?" And I just looked at him. I was like, "Nothing, not a goddamn thing. Like, what am I supposed to be thinking about?"
Yeah.
And he was kind of like, he didn't have an answer for it. And I was like, and I really thought, I mean, maybe you remember the old Poltergeist movies, right? Where it
Yeah.
was like the little girl and she puts her hands on the TV screen and it's all static.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what's going on in my mind. It's just static. There's nothing. It's like what I call white noise. It's like there's not a, because what should I be thinking about, right? Like, sex is not a thinking act. Sex is a doing act.
Mhm.
Sex is a being act. But being and doing are not thinking.
So whenever you were like before, you're saying you were dating someone before you became a porn star. When you were having sex before porn, were you having the white noise as well? Are we just not aware of it, or is this something you developed, or is it something you had?
I think in a lot of ways it was something that I had. Um, and it was fascinating because when I wrote my first book, and I was sitting there and I was decoding, well, like, what were the things that had allowed me to be one of the best in the world at what I did, right? Because I've seen all the guys in the business, and I've seen even guys that are some of the best fail, have bad days, um, get messed up from a psychological perspective where they couldn't perform. I've seen it all. And I thought, well, what was it that made me able to circumvent all that? And one of it early on was irrational self-belief. Like, that was the big one when I think about the first scene, because people often ask me, they're like, "Man, like, your first scene," because first scene I had no problem, right?
Hmm.
And I said to them, well, it was kind of funny because I was 21 years old when I did my first scene, and it was sort of sprung on me in a little bit. Like, I showed up to a casting thinking that they were just going to take some photos of me because I'd been bugging them forever. And instead, I knock on the door and they're like, "Are
Is
you
this
gonna?"
off the back of that newspaper article you just read?
Yeah, same
I love
people.
that. Yeah.
And they open the door and they're like, "Are you Mitch?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then they say, "Hey, do you have sex with a girl right now?" And I was like, uh yeah, right. Like, and there happened to be an actress who was hanging out at their studio before I got there. So I was there, she was there, and they thought, you know what? We'll take a gamble on this kid. And like I said, it was, for me, it was no problem. But I thought about that, like, well, why was it no problem? And I really realized I never thought that I wouldn't get hard,
Mm.
because my default state was so ingrained in me. Like, I'd been masturbating for years, never struggled masturbating a day in my life, right?
Yeah.
Me by myself has never had a bad day. So there was no concept, like, it wasn't even on my map that you could,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't even on my map. So sure, was I nervous? Yes. Was I able to overcome the nerves? Absolutely. And then, as I got older and I got into the business, and of course, you would get put in situations that were really anxiety producing. And then I would learn, okay, well, first of all, there's all these different ways that I can either increase my self belief. So I would do that. I would create positive feedback loops. I would do that. And then I'd be also reaching back in the metaphorical cookie jar. understanding, okay, like here, I know how my body works. I've been with me since I was born, right? So I
Yeah.
know how it works. So if it's not doing that, I know it's a one-off. So I don't even make it where it becomes some existential crisis in my life. Like, okay, we're struggling a little bit today. Okay, no problem. What can we do now to mitigate it? Do I need to change positions? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? Like, what available options do I have where I can get agency and take the reign of the beast, so to speak? And what I learned also, which I think was kind of fascinating about hard-ons, like it still is part of your body,
Hmm.
and you can will it to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like I've been there in situations where when it was all said and done, I was even shocked at myself. I'm like, how the hell did I pull that off? Right? Because I was almost like, this is impossible. And then it's like, no, you can push your body.
Yeah.
You believe you can push. I mean, I remember this was funny. I was on a beach in Dominican Republic, and I'm working for a producer. We had flown all the way out to Dominican Republic, and we're on this beach, and we got the girl, and we're gonna do the pop shot, the cum shot of the film. So he moves her out into the water, so she's like, her knees are in the water, beautiful, sandy beach, beautiful background. And so he's like, okay, whenever. And I said, okay, ready. And so, blam, we do the shot, and the girl moves at the time that it's happening. So of course, instead of getting this pristine background, like the light changes, and so he gets all blown out, right? So it
Yeah.
just goes totally white. We see nothing. He's like, oh God. He's frustrated, right? And he looks at me, he's like, okay, Everhard, can you do a second one? I said, okay, give me a minute, right? So I went, okay, focus, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Are you ready? Ready. Bam. Number 2. And this is within 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So then he looks down at the camera, takes off his hat, stomps on the ground, screaming like, fuck, oh my God, I was on pause. So what had happened was he never shut the camera off. So when he turned the camera thinking he turned it on, he actually turned it off.
uh,
So he's stomping around. He's just furious. And then I remember just looking at him. I was like, I said to him, it was funny because he still remembers the words to this day when we talk about it. I said, Mike, get me my lube. Don't worry. And he was like, and he ran to the beach. He got the bottle of lube and blah, blah, blah. And I just sat there. It was like another 5 minutes. And I was like, okay, you ready? Ready. And so then we did the third one. So it was, it's like, and that third one, I'm reaching deep in my body to say, okay, I know you don't want to do this. No part of my body wants to do this. But we got to do this. Like this has to happen.
yeah.
And I think it's the same thing with any sort of, performance athletics. You look at, I mean, I'm sure marathon runners get 20, 30, 40% of the way, and they're like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And
They hit the
then,
wall.
they're able to shift it and be like, no, you know what? Yeah, sure. I want to die, but body's still alive. I can still push this thing. It's just like my mind has to push the body forward, because your mind's always going to give up before your body does.
Yeah.
I think in 99.9% of situations, you rarely see the person, and those people, I will say, are magical. I remember I was watching a UFC fight. This was like probably 15 years ago, and I think it was Tim Sylvia. I believe that was the fighter. He was the champion, and somebody got him in an armbar, and he refused to let go until the arm snapped in half. And you watch it break on film, and then it's like, whoa, fight's over. But I was like, you think about that mental fortitude. Like, he had to know it's going, and he's like, nope, not tapping, not gonna do it.
Yeah. We don't tap. Yeah.
I will overcome this. Yeah. So the power of the mind is strong, especially in the sexual arena. It's just, I think a lot of people don't know how to tap into it.
So again, 2 questions on that. The first one is, do you think, because most guys listening to this now will be like, fuck, he came 3 times, you only can come once, because there's a belief that when you come, your dick goes down, that you're finished, and then you can't come again. Like, and you'll hear people say, "Oh, I need like macho people. I need about 20 minutes," and you're just describing three in five. So my first question is, do you think a lot of people just believe that you come, you're done? And then my second question, which is related, but how did you get that mental fortitude to do it? Is it you seem quite competitive, like you wanted to be the best, you're landing in it. So was that a competitiveness, a stubbornness, or just a wanting to do a good job where you're like, fuck, I'll do it again because I want this to be done right. Like, so I know that's a lot of questions in one go, but
Yeah. I would say there's definitely, I mean, I've always been a hyper stubborn person. Um, but then I'm exceptionally, I'm an exceptional loyal team player. So it's like if the job is on the line, I will do everything in my power to make sure that it's not going to be because I failed,
yeah.
right? If something doesn't happen, something works, it's going to be on somebody else, but it's not going to be because I didn't give it everything that I had,
Hmm.
And if I honestly believed I couldn't do it, that'd be one thing. But like I said, I when it comes to that, I always have that belief that I can. And as long as that window of belief is there, I'm willing to push my body to make sure I can. And
Hmm.
and it's also, and this is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, in my writings and teachings. There's this part of, um, you you're sitting there and you think, well, okay, I can't get this together. I'm struggling. And if you keep pushing and you intimately have learned your body, and this is the key part, like, because a lot of guys, what I've found, they don't really know their bodies that well, right? Like we don't really know, hey, what are the metrics behind our bodies? And I think if you intimately start to understand that, okay, well, what is it actually that gets me hard? Like, have I just been blindly jerking off, or have I really been like, what, if I do it like this works much better than if I do it like this? Or, what about positions? Does this position work better than another position? What about XYZ? I mean, there's so many other different factors where you can really start to learn about your own body. And as soon as you know how your body works, well, now you can go out into the world with that.
Hmm.
And now you can go out there and like create, create that kind of magic, because you can think to yourself, well, okay, you know what? If I do this technique and I do this way of masturbating that I've fundamentally learned through lots of practice, I know I've got that real chance to make this happen. Then I can go out and do it. Even if we're thinking about the guys that are like, well, I can't produce an orgasm 3 minutes later. Well, have you tried?
Yeah.
Did you ever actually run an experiment? And did you ever say, what if I do this during that refractory period? Maybe I could find a way to overcome that refractory period. But most people, it's one and done. And then they're just like, well, that's how it is.
Yeah.
Well, that may not be how it is, but you haven't stepped into navigating that new experience and trying out, well, what if I try this position? What if I, don't let all the blood go down? Can I keep the blood in? And then can I circumvent that moment where the blood is supposed to go down? These are all things, right? It's blood flow is much easier to keep than to get.
Yeah.
So there's all these different sort of strategies where we can legitimately use them to overcome these issues. And they're available for everybody. It's just I think most people, they're just not thinking that strategic in their sex life, which is sort of a shame when I look at how important sex is to people.
Yeah.
Like everybody wants sexual mastery. Everybody wants to be a, quote unquote porn star. It's like, well, are you doing what it takes to be that?
Mhm.
Like, what's the most famous sport where you're at?
Gaelic, soccer, Gaelic.
Soccer. Okay,
Mm.
so let's use soccer. I can't imagine that anybody out there would be saying like, "Hey, you know what? I can sit on the couch all day, eat Cheetos, get fat, never do anything, and go compete with Ronaldo."
Yeah.
Like they're probably like, "No, you know what? If I was to be a pro soccer player, I probably have to take the habits and strategies and tips and everything that pro soccer players use." So to say everybody says, I want to be this wonderful person in bed, but I don't want to put in any effort whatsoever to achieve this
Yeah.
is a little ludicrous because, again, we're talking about a part of your body that you are born with, but it doesn't mean that you have the function and the agency over it as someone who's really training it and working with it. It's the same thing like, hey, I got a pair of legs. I can't do some weird windmill kick of a soccer ball and all this stuff. I have legs too.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, you got a penis, I got a penis. Well, what's making the difference? You know,
Hmm.
Ronaldo has legs, I got legs. Sorry, I'm not outrunning him. It's not by a long shot.
Yeah. It's funny because if you use the same analogy about a bicep, all guys would tell you how to work your bicep. Even people that do not exercise at all would know, oh, you do bicep curls and that gives you a bigger bicep. And you're like, well, maybe if you can train your bicep, you can train other muscles, you can train your cock to do something, you can train. It's about that awareness. So, do you think it's maybe a bit of if I don't try, I can't feel? So it's not my fault. So this isn't something I have control over. So whereas now you're teaching people, well, yes, you do. So
Yeah, I think it's a big part of, and that's where the mental aspect compounds the problem, right? Because it's not just something solitary,
yeah,
right? Like it means so much more. You know, if you go to the gym, right? Like I'm a gym guy, I always have been, right? But like I go there and let's say I try the 50-pound, 60-pound dumbbells and I'm trying to do a bench press and I don't get it up, right? Like doesn't happen.
yeah,
Who who's gonna hear about it, right? Like nobody. It was just like it was me in the gym. Okay, I'll do better next time. But where the mental problem comes is, you have these issues with your sex life, and typically there's somebody else there that is acutely aware of the issue, right? So now,
yeah,
it's not just, hey, I'm struggling to overcome this in solitude. No, I'm now struggling to overcome this with somebody else that now is going to have an opinion of me. And then we have to look at society, where society is saying, well, their opinion of you matters a lot.
hmm,
And then the opinion that they have will probably be told to everybody else in the school or the workplace, or,
yeah,
now we have social media. So it's like, they're going to say my performance was horrible on Twitter. Who knows, right? So that's a mental burden that a lot of guys have to overcome. And so that's where I see it's really difficult for guys, because you've got the needing to understand, well, how do I functionally get the hows and the whats of sex, and understanding my body down. So there's the training piece, but then there's the, I have to go out in the world and also deal with these other people that, if I don't perform well, are going to now have a negative opinion of me. And then now I have to be able to psychologically deal with that internally. And that's sort of
yeah,
the part. I mean, the the analogy I like the most is actually goaltending in hockey, because there's no more pressing position that I can think of in sports where all of the all of the negativity and very little of the glory falls on him,
yeah. And any
right? like
goalie, really, when you think about it.
like the goalies are not the highest paid. It's not the highest paid position. That's
No.
center. No, goalies don't get paid the most. They probably get paid the least, but they are the most important. And if they let in a bad goal, everybody hears about it. So
Hmm.
you look at their mental framework, the good ones, they let in a goal, they pretended 0-0. It's like that thing didn't happen. You can't let it happen, right? It's like, okay, that happened. Okay, whatever. Back to 0-0, and we're just pushing forward, and we're saving the next one. And you got to look at your sex life the same way too, right? It's like, because everybody's going to have a less than stellar day. It's how you deal with the less than stellar day. And some of them, there is no rhyme nor reason. I can wake up on Tuesday and I can, wake up in the morning. I got a super glass cutter, morning wood. And Thursday I don't know why. I mean, you'll have these people that are like, oh, well, because we've fluctuating testosterone levels, yada, yada. I know guys that are injecting testosterone too and have the same level all day long, and their stuff will still be one day it's here, one day it's not. There's so much pseudoscience around it that I'm not even concerned about it. I'm just saying, hey, understand, one day it could be like a level 10 and the next could be a level 8, and we don't know why. It's the same thing with your girlfriend. You could be making out with her on Tuesday, you get the psychological hard on. It comes on, you're just hard in your pants, nobody's touching it, and then Thursday it's like, well, it'll get hard, but hey, somebody needs to be touching, rubbing, interacting with it. Like, it's not just magically going to happen. And you just have to understand that's how your body works. And whatever shows up, whether you have the psychological one or you need a manual stimulation one, that you still got to work with it, what you got at the moment. And that's how you move forward and have a successful sex life, right? It's like, okay, well, hey, you know what? This isn't working. Call an audible. Like, okay, what's at my disposal right now? How can I work things right now?
It seems like the self-awareness is massive in what you're teaching here. Like you talked about earlier, when you're actually in having sex with someone, and if you're getting to the age or whatever, you can think about, well, what position would make this better? What can I do here to protect myself? And even with if you're not getting it up, instead of just worrying about that, think about what are my options here. 'Cause from experience with chatting with people and stuff, that it seems like they feel like they don't have options. You have to be glass diamond hard, ready to go, and for as long as possible until they run out of steam, and then you can think about it. Whereas what you're saying there is your self-awareness, more aware. And from personal experience, I would think if you're more aware, then you're more aware of yourself, you're more present, and the more present you are in sex, lovemaking, whatever you want to call it, the better it is for you and the partner, or in your case, the 101 partners that are there if you're switched on. One of the things that sort of leads me to one of the things that I read about in your book was, it's the women decide, they make the decision whether it's going to happen, but then men, that's why I always felt like I'm going to have sex because a woman agrees and she makes a decision. If she phones me now and says, can we have sex today? I'm there. But once we're in it, it's almost like I'm leading the charge, for want of a better term. I'm deciding how we do, what happens. And am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Could you delve into that a wee bit for us, please?
Yeah. It's interesting because this was something that I've noticed time and time again, and I really see it to be true through my lens of the way the world works. If we were to go to, and I use the example in the book, but we were to go to a bar, right? And we got some super hot chick, and then we just have, any guy, and the super hot chick raise her hands and say, hey man, who wants to fuck me right now? I mean, if she's reasonably good looking, all us guys are like, hey, yes, over here, woohoo, let's do this, baby, right? Like, we're on it, man.
Yeah.
Chicks, no, they're you do the same thing into a room full of them, and it's going to be crickets, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, right? And I think a lot of them are, we could say some are societal. I think more of them are biological, right? In the standpoint of, okay, like, let's look at men, 17 times higher testosterone than women. And I'm not saying that women don't like sex. I'm just saying from my experience, they're not like a drug addicted junkie looking for it, right? Because
Yeah.
that's kind of what testosterone is. I mean, take any, 14, 15-year-old when their testosterone's at peak. I mean, they're jerking off 5 times a day, and you can't not think about it. Like, it's just, it's overwhelming. And I knew, because I was always into kind of bodybuilding and that stuff, and I knew some girls that had injected testosterone, and they would tell you, they're like, whoa, I don't know how you guys deal with that. Because their mind would be just like, I want to fuck everything that walks right now, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little different perspective. And then, from the, if we go back to the biology, women, there's a lot more that they have to deal with if they make the wrong decision, right? They could be pregnant. There's a lot of other things that women have to deal with when they're selecting for who the best mate's going to be. And for guys, that's not what we're really selecting for. We're just like, hey, you're kind of hot, you turn me on, like that will get me hard. So women are really the gatekeepers of the decision making. They're going to look at you and they're going to say, okay, David Data said it the best in his book, Way of the Superior Man: choose the woman who chooses you. So it's like, you may have 20 girls that have chosen you. You as the man get to select from those 20. But you don't get to select from the 20,000, right? Because it's sort of reversed like that, and that's why you'll say, women, you hear this a lot, but I think it's also very true. Women are the gatekeepers to sex, men are the gatekeepers to relationships.
Yeah,
Because
I agree with that. Yeah.
Because men fundamentally, we want sex, and then if everything else lines up, we're like, yeah, this would make a good relationship. And women are more looking like, hey, is this going to make a good relationship? Yeah, if all that lines up, okay, we'll have sex, right? So you're coming at it from two different perspectives of what our main driver is. So that brings us back to, decisions and actions. So if the woman is the decider of sex, the man is completely in control of the act. And I challenge anybody to tell me that he's not, because if you want penetrative sex, if the guy doesn't get it up, it's not happening.
Yeah.
If he lasts 20 seconds and you wanted 20 minutes, tough break. It's not happening. Right. So right from that starting premise, right? If you want the good time, he's going to be in charge of it. And his ability to control his body is going to be the paramount driver of the whole sexual interaction. So the act of having sex, totally up to him. Right. And there's a lot of agency in that for guys, right? Because, I've talked to tons of women, right? And, most of the really feminine women will always say, hey, I may have a corporate job, this, that, but I want to be submissive. I want a man to take me in the bedroom, right? The overarching 90 some odd percent of them, that's their wish, right? They want to be submissive in the bedroom, and they want somebody that's going to ravish them. And it becomes this sort of, they're wanting to be lovingly taken, if that's the best words I can come up with it. But it even comes from a almost student teacher sort of dynamic. I mean, it's the same thing, you can see this a lot with women, especially older women. They would find it's cute to be with a guy that, like, if he was a virgin and she had to teach him everything, that's cute, and that's cool one time.
I don't think I want to be known as cute whenever I'm in the bedroom.
But no, I've known women that, they took some kid's virginity. He was like, 18, 19, and they're like, oh yeah, it was so awesome, it was so sweet. But for them, it was one time. Like, if they had to sit there, tell him what to do every single time, now can you do this, now can you, they're like, no, total turn off. So I think for guys, what they need to start to understand is that, well, the burden of performance exists, and there's, you can either, run to your basement, run away from it, or you can lean into it and say, okay, this is the way the game is set up and I need to play the game by the game's rules.
Mhm.
And if those are the rules of the game where I'm going to be burdened with this performance, then I need to find out how to better my performance, because the burden's not going away if I want to step into, sexual relations with women.
Yeah. A
It's
lot of
never going
people,
away.
a lot of people would think that like it's because they're not with the right person. It would work better if I was with the right person. You're like the right person with no knowledge is still going to create the same scenario for you. So people understanding that it's there. I need to get better at it. Like if you need to get stronger, you go to the gym and work on things to get stronger. So if you need to get like the idea, and for every guy that's listening, the idea of like you were saying about masturbating as a way of a science experiment, like instead of just coming in from work and jerking off quick or something, the wind blows and you jerk off quick. You just leave it at that. You're not learning anything there. You're just reinforcing you're a good wanker, but when it comes to everything else, you're just not that good at it. Um, so going back to your book, I think everyone should get it, male and female. I think it's a great perspective for a female to understand how little understanding men have. Like when you're talking about the clit, and I've had this conversation before, and like whenever you say the statement of the clit gets hard, and you go to talk on, and like come back, what did you say? Like the clit moves, it has what? And to me, and again, I just think it's from massage and having being very communicative with people. I notice stuff and I question things. Is this a normal thing to happen? So I think everyone should read the book in general if you want better sex. This makes better life, I think. So for say if I was listening to this now and I'm thinking, like, fuck, I never even knew these were issues. I never even thought that I'm in charge. I was just thinking I needed to take control. Where would you suggest people start to improve? Obviously, buy the book and read the book. But after that, um, how do I start either communicating with myself, with my partner, with just understanding that it's something I can improve on and there's linear steps to do that?
Yeah. So if I was going to tell somebody, okay, well, how could we best improve your abilities as quickly as possible? It's really, you got two different parts. One is the knowledge piece, right? So, and that's what I've tried to give guys, because sometimes what you learn, quote unquote, as sex education doesn't teach you anything. And this is one of the hallmarks of where the porn business has failed men, right? Because porno is a form of entertainment. It is not education. And I'll use pussy eating as a clear example, because you can watch how people do it, and we get forced to do it on the films, right?
Yeah.
Because the camera needs to see it. So it's this horrifically languishing, outstretched, long tongue thing that no woman would ever feel is good.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what guys see, because, well, if we actually do it how it feels good for women, you don't see anything on camera. You're not
Yeah.
going to see anything, right? So you get a lot of guys that they have no proper knowledge on the techniques that work just as their baseline.
Yeah.
So first, let's get stuff that works. Like let's have you understand, okay, here are how the positions need to be performed to maximize stimulation for the woman and minimize stimulation for yourself. Because that's, when I teach guys, that's one of the hallmark things that I tell them, right? If you're going into sexual interaction, since the average guy takes 5.4 minutes to have an orgasm. Average woman is 13.7, I believe. So we got a gap there that we need to close, right? And that's a
Yeah.
fairly sizable gap, right?
Yeah.
But not
You'd have come
insurmountable.
twice in that stage and she still wouldn't be there.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it's very possible, right? So if we just look at that, it's like, okay, well, our first steps need to be, we need to maximally stimulate her so we can bring that 13 minutes down, because it doesn't need to be 13, right? And we need to minimally stimulate ourselves so that we can, instead of it being 5 minutes or 2 minutes, it can be 10 minutes, it can be 15 minutes. Now we've closed that gap, right? Because if she's normally 13, we can bring her down to 10, we can get ourselves up to 12. Hey, now we're ahead, we're in the black, right?
Yeah.
And it's very easy to do, but it starts with, okay, we got to know what, the what's and the hows of our body and the techniques that are going to be most effective. So, that's the first part. It's like, okay, well, we got to have the knowledge. Then we got to have the feedback of the skill sets, right? So it's like, first you got the knowledge, then you got to go out there and you got to apply it to be able to understand the nuances. Like, I can teach guys all about what they're supposed to feel with their tongue compass. But again, here's what you're feeling for. Here's what it feels like. Here's what it looks like. You still have to go out there and execute, and get that sensitivity yourself. All I can do is I can shine the light and say, you know what, this sensitivity exists. Here's what it can be like. And then I can also, for my private clients, I send them video footage. I'm like, here's the results of this. So I can show you all of this. I can point you the way, but still at the end of the day, you got to go in there and you need to execute. And you need to start getting these feelings for yourself. It's no different than, if we're driving a car with a clutch, right? I remember when I was 16 and I had to learn, and someone can tell you, okay, you know what, you put the clutch down, then you're going to go into first, and then you're slowly putting on the gas and you're releasing the clutch. Dude, you're going around the block at first, like, you're stalling the car left, right, and center, because you don't know what you're feeling for. You don't know where that sweet spot is between the clutch and the accelerator. Do it a couple times though. Now we're getting around the block. Now we're getting somewhere, but the knowledge, that doesn't change, right? It's like, this is how the car works. This is how the female works. I can tell you how she works. I've done all the knowledge any man will ever need to do. Right?
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, well, we need to just put it into practice. Right. And then, the other part is, where are you creating as a man? And the reason I say this, and this goes into the bedroom leadership piece, and this touches on what you had mentioned earlier, guys need to understand that within limits, all women are almost the same. That's why when somebody says, well, if I just had a different partner, it would be better. No, it wouldn't be, right? Because I've seen this throughout my career. You could have this woman that was like an insatiable man-eater woman. I've met some of them where they are just on another level. Like, you think this girl is going to like rip your soul out while she's having sex with you, right? But they could only rise to the level of man they were with. And I will repeat that. She could only rise to the level of man she was with. So I've seen those same girls that you would say were utter beasts in the bedroom, and they were merely little pussy kittens with the wrong guy that didn't lead and couldn't create. Because it's like, okay, hey, we have a Ferrari here. Yeah, put Michael Schumacher behind it. We're winning F1s. If I put your 90-year-old grandpa, he's driving the thing like a Hyundai. Well, it's a Hyundai. At that point, you have a Hyundai. You just have a $200,000 Hyundai.
Yeah.
And women are no different. So from that perspective, you can create that porn star experience, or you could create whatever experience with any woman, but it's how are you creating it? That comes back to, again, the fact that, from the act, the guy has to create the magic. He is in charge of that. And that's where he needs to lead the sexual interaction, rather than just waiting for the gods to suddenly bestow this magical sexual, either abilities or this sexual moment, or this girl's going to be, do these crazy things. She'll do crazy things, but you got to push the scenario in that direction.
And most of the time, the guys that want the crazy things to happen, that want the cheerleader or the porn star, they couldn't handle the cheerleader or the porn
Yeah,
star
yeah,
if
it's a
they
whole different level. It's a whole
if it
different level.
arrived. Uh, Surely the fact that men know they can be in charge and they can lead and they can change positions, would that take pressure off someone that does have either premature ejaculation or not even premature, but just goes fast because they know, well, I don't need to do a long porn stroke. I can keep it in there and have no tip action so that I can prolong or I can move the position to a position that I know is a position that isn't going to make me pop. Like, does that, what in your experience, does it come across when people learn that they can lead and they, well, men should lead?
Well, what I've noticed, and I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. The thing that I've noticed is most guys, they don't seem to notice, or they haven't yet learned that they have all those options at their disposal.
Yeah.
Like I've worked with a lot of guys where I'll say, okay, and they'll have a premature ejaculation issue. And first thing I say is, okay, well, which positions have you tested them in? What do you mean? There is always going to be a position that feels worse than the others. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
tell them, I was like, okay, here's a little experiment. If you have your wife or significant other, start each time and just mark it. Like we're going to the gym, we're just creating metrics. Okay. So on Monday, we're doing missionary. Start with that position. But you know what? Tuesday, let's start with spoon.
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday, let's start with doggy. Thursday, let's do a lie flat doggy. You know, Friday, let's try cowgirl and time it. See how long you last, because I guarantee you're going to find one of those that is a couple minutes longer than the others because it just doesn't hit the same spots.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right there, we've gained a couple minutes. Okay, well, now how could we start applying this to the rest of our sex life, right? How does this give us new control? How does this allow us to now move into different positions and understand, you know what? Oh, I'm feeling sensitive, but if I were to go back to that other position, I can now take myself from a level 9.5 back down to a 7. I can maintain a 7 for maybe another 5 minutes. I could start to desensitize my body. Now I could go back to that first position that was giving me trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but most guys get so zeroed in, they get in and they go, missionary position, and that's all their focus is. And then they're in their mind, they're like, well, okay, I'm just gonna, brute force my way through this, which
Yeah.
doesn't happen. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, clearly that's not working, because if it was working, you wouldn't be having these problems.
Yeah. And the
So, like,
fear probably as well of coming early
yeah,
is already there before they start. And another reason to get your book is because they can learn how to go down on their significant other to make up for it. So we're finished here, but
yeah,
we'll do this whilst I recharge.
yeah. Well, again, and what's the amazing thing about that? It removes the albatross of performance from around your neck,
Yeah.
right? I have never in all my time met a woman that didn't give a guy a second chance if he got her off multiple times,
Yeah.
right? Like, free hall pass, you're good.
I-
It's okay, right?
Men seem to think that it has to be the dick that does the work. Like going down is all well and good, but it's only to lead to the dick. And then that's supposed to be the magic wand that fucking sorts everything. But uh, I would agree with you there that if you have someone that like a male that can pleasure a female multiple times, it would make no sense not to give them another shot. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, and what people don't understand either is, I talk about it when I talk about the lock and key theory that I have, where you're going to have different pussies, because I talk about the 4 different types in the book, and you're going to have different dicks that just do work together. And I've talked to lots of women about this, and I said, if we were to just take guys irrespective of skill set, and we just had different shaped penises of, this one's curved this way, this is like this, like one of those is going to feel better than any of the others. And they're like, absolutely. Yep. There's one that just, for me, and it's not going to be the same one for everyone, right? So again, we're finding where is this lock fitting in this key? But in that case, so could there be, the girl who can never seem to get off with penile penetration? Could there be a guy? Yeah, maybe, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't be the guy that gets her off with your tongue and you get her off all these other ways, rather than being like, oh, I've failed as a man because of a biological limitation. I mean, you know what? I can't play basketball because I'm 5'10". I'm not 7 feet tall. Have I failed as a man because I'm not 7 feet tall to play basketball?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no. Like I'm
It's
I'm
mad
playing a
that,
different game, right? Like it's like,
yeah,
okay.
people will put like you're saying, things you can't do anything about it, and they'll be like, how do I improve, my cock? Is there a pill? Is there something, rather than how do I improve my skill? So I
Yeah.
remember after like LimeWire came out and you could actually download porn and stuff, and it wasn't just the dial-up, and then you're seeing like all these supplements and all these pumps and how to blow a bigger load and all this madness, and you're like, is this really what's, if I was shite in bed but I flooded her with cum, would that win it over? I don't think that's gonna do anything good.
Oh, no, all those are scams anyways. People just trying to take your money. None of that stuff exists or works.
Uh, yeah, but again, why do you think it is? And it's just fundamental, even outside the bedroom. But people are always looking for the shiny, fast object rather than, like, even we were talking about testosterone earlier. People who want the quick fix will inject testosterone to get bigger muscles, and you're like, that doesn't make you function any better. It's like, so why do you think people? Because I know you've done NLP and stuff, and you're working, like we talked just off the call, and you were saying that guys come to you and they think that's one problem, and then when you start to talk to them, you're like, they don't know what they don't know, so they end up
Yeah.
working on other things. Have you noticed it? Like is it something that's? I find it's everywhere where people are always looking for, how do I get bigger? How do I stay harder? How do I do this? How do, like, they're always looking for the shiny object. Do you find it hard to teach them to go to just learn the techniques, and then it won't matter if you're the biggest wang ever or the smallest, like you'll have this technique and
Yeah. So this is really sort of fundamental, I think, to part of it is just the experience of man, I think. And then part of it is the delusion of man. So when I think about the experience of man, it's like, okay, men throughout history have always been, it's bigger, stronger, faster, right? Like we're always looking, how do we improve? How do we improve? How do we get 1% better? How can we do this, do that? So that's sort of, on that perspective. The delusion of man is that in the bedroom, certain things matter, right? Like, oh, my dick size totally matters. Okay, there is a point where it will. I mean, if you got a micro penis, like, that's going to be a little tough, right? Like we're packing under 2 or 3 inches. It's a harder go. It's a harder go. And that's just how it is. I mean, we're just talking biology there, but if you're packing standard issue, it's really all about technique. I mean, I've performed beside guys with the most monstrous dicks you've ever seen in your life, right? Where you're like, how is that thing real? I mean, and it is, right? But the girls aren't having any better time. You get most of them where they're cringing. They're like, oh God, they're they're actresses and they're taking it for the team, but they're like, oh, it's not working, right? And those guys, just because it's big doesn't mean that they have the because technique of getting a girl off is completely different. You look at the old school UFC fights. God, you'd have like some bruising 300-pound massive guy, and you get this little 150-pound jujitsu guy chokes him out. It's like, size didn't help there, did it?
yeah.
It was all technique. So technique is always the thing that's going to trump size. I mean, the only time that where you can have them sort of overlap each other, it's like, okay, well, now if you've got masterful technique and then you happen to be blessed with, above average size, well, I mean, that's the same thing. Like if you get some super trained, jujitsu guy that's 220 pounds, well, he's probably going to kill everybody because he's got the strength, he's got this, he's got everything in his
Yeah.
back pocket. But if we're talking about functionality and what works, it's really technique. And it's funny because we go back to our times when we're in middle school and high school and all that, and it was probably the same for you. Like I remember clear as day, being in biology class, and I think it was grade 11, grade 10 or grade 11, and somebody started comparing dick sizes, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, they're just throwing out these lofty numbers where I've been in porno now for, half my life. And I'm listening to this, like, the guy's like, oh yeah, well, I got 8 inches. And the other guy's like, well, I'm holding 9. Oh, I got 10 over here. But I'm like, man, like, where are you measuring from? Your asshole, the back of your spine? Like, where are you getting these numbers from? Right. Because I've seen what legit looks like.
Yeah.
And it's not that, certainly not even that common in porno to be having that size. So
It's funny that like all those conversations would happen in school, and like even the pissing contest, who can piss the highest up the wall. I remember chatting to women when it was normal to me, and then because we had toilets outside in our primary school, and then when you say that out loud, they're like, "You did what?" I thought that was just a saying, and you're like, "No, we did have literal pissing competitions," but you went the extra mile and actually. Like when we'd talk about like I'm 10 inches and I can go for fucking 7 hours and I rate everyone and I'm in class. Like you actually legitimately could say what size you are and how long you can go and what you can do and everything. Like living the schoolboy dream, as it were. Which is quite funny. Um,
yeah, yeah, but it was also something else that I learned, just coming back to the psychology of things, right? There was there's a certain psychology that I've noticed with all the guys who were top of the top porno actors, and they were probably all doing it unconsciously, but it's something that I've noticed time and time again, is that the best actors I've ever seen never bragged. And that's sort of a key distinction there. It's like, and I think you probably see it in every aspect of your life, but you really do see it when it comes to sex. It's like the people that aren't, trying to, because there's fake confidence. Like, I'm going to be confident today. I'm going to,
yeah,
who cares, right? The guys that were the top of the top that I've known, they would never be on set saying, I'm the best, I'm this. No, no, they were quiet. Just, hey, when it's time to pull it out, yeah, I'm going to get it done.
yeah,
And that was it. Like,
that inner
total belief,
confidence.
total belief in themselves.
Mm.
And that was it. But there was no bragging. Every time I saw somebody, and I've witnessed this, and it's happened so many times, I could see the train wreck happening before it would happen. I remember one time, I was on this set, and there was this new guy, and he was just chirping like you wouldn't believe. And he was like, oh man, wait till you see my big dick. As soon as I get it hard, everybody's gonna be blown away, blah, blah. And he's just talking. Sure enough, now it's go time, right?
Mm.
Never got 1 ounce, not one drop of blood entered into that thing, right? And the whole
Yeah.
time he's trying to get the blood. He's like, just you wait till I get it. Like, it's gonna be magic. I'm like, all right, buddy, like show us the magic here, right? And I've seen it time and time again. So, it comes back to that. Well, you have to have that irrational belief in yourself, and you also have to have the calm and that real inner confidence, because that's what's going to keep you at an even keel and keep your adrenaline from spiking and all this stuff. Like, that's
Mhm.
being in the moment. Being in the
Yeah,
moment and being present is, okay, what's here in front of me? What am I doing right now? What can I create? Not future pacing, like, oh, just you wait what I'm going to do. Well, you haven't done anything yet.
yeah,
Like,
anybody
let's
can do
focus.
that. Yeah.
Let's focus on what you're doing now.
Yeah, and that idea of having that inner confidence sort of reminds me, like I would teach people to do how to talk on stage and stuff. And the way you were describing your first experience, you probably didn't know mentally that there was such thing as performance anxiety or people who have trouble getting it up. Like you're 21 and they're like, "Here's a hot woman. Do you want to have sex with her now and we'll video it?" And you're 21-year-olds like, "Yes." I had
Oh
sex with
yeah.
the wind yesterday, so I'm ready for a woman today. And you would get that in all aspects of life everywhere. Like the people, I've seen it at talks, I've seen it at gigs and stuff. The ones that are backstage talking all the shit, what they're gonna do, and they're gonna blow everything away, and it's their way of trying to deal with their own anxieties, and then they don't. Obviously, it doesn't work, and they get on stage and they bomb. Whereas you're having that inner confidence and self belief and professionalism, really, where at the end of the day, you're there for a job. You have a job to do in this, and like you said earlier, you'll go to any extreme to get this job done. Um, I'm very cautious of your time there. I could speak to you forever. For anyone that wants to reach out to you and find you, where's the best place to get you?
Well, the best places is them to go to erikeverhard.com. That's where I have all my different coaching programs. I have my 12-week one-to-one sexual mastery experience where I go do one-on-one coaching through a whole structured curriculum, and I take all the guys through everything that I learned over the last 24 years at this point, to be the best in the world. So I have that. And then they can also reach out to me at crushingperformanceanxiety.com, because that's where I teach guys, hey, here's how you can get hard in any situation. You can use the strategies and the tools that I've used to be able to overcome the craziest things. I mean, actually, this is a funny aside, but the most anxiety inducing thing I ever did, which I use because I videotaped it, I use it as a teaching tool for guys, is where I had sex in the town square of Budapest at high noon with tourists and police watching across the street. That was not an easy day.
That sounds hectic. Yeah.
And but I use it from the perspective of, okay, I was filled with anxiety. Here's exactly the steps, and you can see as I work through it in real time, I'm like, here's what I was doing, this principle that I talk about, here's where you can see me using it, and here's all the different steps where I was like, okay, all these things need to come together, and then next thing I'm at their version of their monument having sex until I got arrested. But that's a whole separate aside.
Trying to close the podcast and you throw out a crazy story like that. It's like just reminded me of the movie Crank. Whenever it's like they stole that from your life. So when I get you back, we can delve into your arrest and boot it.
We
Even
can delve deep. We can delve
even
deep. No
I
puns
could just
intended.
picture you in the prison, and people are like, "What are you in for? What are you in for? What? Sorry, what did that man say? Come back again. What were you fucking doing?" But I love that you had, like, again, we said this at the start. You could go to Cosmopolitan, it'll give you 10 ways to woo your woman, or whatever, and it'll not get you anywhere. You've done it. But the fact that when you come to you and be taught it, you're getting to watch, this is me doing the technique. This is when I do this, which is massive compared to, like, someone who thinks they're a Jack the Lad and they're like this. Well, whenever this happens, I just do this thing, and they just tell you something made up. You're able to actually pinpoint, show this is the exact moment where I'm thinking this, and this is when I'm using this technique. And so, um, that's for anyone that is listening with performance anxiety or just wants to be better. Like, that's, you're not going to get any, you're not going to learn anything like that anywhere else. Like, I love that you put it across that the porn is, you're forced to do some of the things for angles. It's people seem to forget that it's entertainment. Like you said, it's not
Mhm.
education. And they do, like, I come while fast. What are you doing? I do them big long strokes, and you're like, well, probably because you're doing the big long strokes. But that's what
Yeah.
Erik does in his porn video. Yeah, yeah. I will
We
link
have to.
everything below so that they can find you. Is your where can they get your book as well to start them?
They can find the book on Amazon, and actually, I'm going to be um, re-releasing that along with a new book due in about 4 months. I have a new book coming out um, that is very specific around the pussy eating and how to do that effectively. So I'll have both of those, and those will be available on erikeverhard.com as well.
Awesome. So that's a good excuse to get you back then whenever this new book
Yes. Oh
comes
yeah.
out.
That's
We could
a
talk
good
about
one
that.
too. It's a good one.
Brilliant. Eric, I really appreciate your time. I loved the conversation and could have kept it going. I know a lot of listeners will get something from it, and they can reach out to you. They can reach out to me as well. So really appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Welcome. And for everyone else, have a super awesome day, whatever you get up to, and I will speak to you again soon.